Well, in the ongoing battle of the sidewalks between cyclists and pedestrians, which side are you on? In this video by Vanessa Liu for ST's investigative series, we look at where people stand on the issues and what the solutions might be.
In tiny Singapore, the fight for the use of space is never-ending. The latest conflict zone, it seems, is on pavements.
For many years, cyclists rode mainly on roads where they jostled with motorists. Fatal accidents grew over the years until 2016.
The team behind this episode, Vanessa Liu and To Ting Wei, are with me now. So Vanessa, let's start with you. In producing this episode, what behaviours and actions of both cyclists and pedestrians that were particularly worrying for you?
When we were doing our groundwork out in the streets, we realized that a lot of pedestrians tend to be complacent on footpaths. Some of them have this pedestrian is king mindset. I must be safe on pavement, so I can play with my phone or not pay attention to my surroundings. So as a result, we do have a lot of people we term as phone zombies who would be walking around with their faces buried in their phones and not paying attention to the surroundings. And that was there were quite a number of people that we observed that were doing that on pavements. Yep. And once when we were outside Bedok Mall, we actually did a rough count of about 150 phone zombies in a stretch of 20 minutes on a weekday, slightly around 7 p.m. So this was a common occurrence that we observed while doing our groundwork. And then at the same time, there were a few cyclists who were riding a little recklessly, I would say, a little on the fast side, and pedestrians had to swerve to avoid these cyclists when they saw them. So this was some of the behaviors that we observed. So actually, before we began work on this video, we observed this me versus you attitude that pedestrians and cyclists have towards each other. And we wanted to tap into this sense and explore this issue at a deeper level. And following the publishing of our video, we received an outpouring of feedback from the viewers, and we realized that this sense was even much stronger than we had expected. And there were even audiences who wrote on our Facebook page and said that they have experienced similar incidents, near accidents and collisions with cyclists. And there was one who was even knocked down by cyclists, and she was left bleeding on the side, while another whose elderly mom was knocked down by cyclists and had to be hospitalized with a deep cut to her head. So these accidents that the viewers cited made us realize that this was a problem that is actually very, very prevalent, and it's only set to worsen as more people adopt cycling as a way of getting around.
Right. Okay, so like you said, Vanessa, prevalent problem. So let's talk about what can be done to address these problems. To borrow one of the lines from the episode, some call for more imagination in how Singapore can make room for cyclists. For example, overtaking lanes on footpaths, dedicated lanes for cars, cyclists and pedestrians, and even a hybrid lane that bicycles will share with buses. So Ting Wei, let's bring you into this discussion. Are these win-win solutions given our infrastructure constraints, you think?
So during our interviews with all these cyclists and pedestrians, we got some suggestions about what we can do moving forward in terms of developing the cycling infrastructure here. So one of the main ones that you have raised is the one that an retired architect told us about, which is having kind of like overtaking lanes on footpaths for cyclists. So these overtaking lanes are not really like full-fledged lanes where you create 1.5 meters worth of road space for cyclists to cycle, but it's more of maybe grass pavers, like small concrete slabs at the side of footpaths where cyclists can cycle on when they are trying to overtake people. So the width of these slabs are maybe 30 cm, 50 cm. It's not very big, but it's really just meant for cyclists to overtake when they need to. So that does sound like a more feasible solution because it doesn't take up so much space and it seems like it's quite cheap. But of course, as with these kind of things, when you implement it on the ground, it can be quite different. So other things that people have called for include dedicated lanes for cyclists, which is not a new suggestion and which is what has been done in some other countries. But again, this is limited by space constraints. But it doesn't mean that it's impossible, in my opinion, because like when you have places such as maybe like Bradder Road, where you are looking at taking away parts of the road space to create more space for cyclists, it does sound plausible that maybe some of this space can be dedicated to cyclists exclusively. But of course, there are a lot of other considerations, such as the road traffic there, the amount of pedestrians in the area. So again, that's something that needs to be studied, but it shouldn't be something that should be ruled out, given that, I mean, we have been going with the current system for quite long, so might be worth thinking of the box and looking for solutions to accommodate these kind of solutions. The last one that we heard from another cyclist is about hybrid lane for buses and bicycles. So again, this does sound like a good idea on paper, because I mean, for these two, if you can create lanes for them, it makes cycling more appealing. But there's also the safety aspect as to how you accommodate bicycles and buses in a lane on the same road for long distances, which might be something of a safety concern. So that might be something that might not be coming anytime in the near future. But I guess for us, we also got to look beyond just the infrastructure considerations when it comes to having like promoting bicycling in Singapore, because like often raised, there's only so much space that we have. So I think, to the authorities' credit, they have tried something else, like such as promoting the pedestrians' code of conduct and also the cyclists' code of conduct, where like instead of focusing on infrastructure alone, they are trying to encourage changes in behavior. But this is quite limited in terms of its impact, because when we talk to pedestrians, most of them don't know about the existence of such a code of conduct that they have to follow. So moving forward, I think public education efforts should also be quite important in terms of teaching people how to share paths properly. And for pedestrians ourselves, and also for cyclists, we both really do have to take note of what kind of rules are there and try to have the mindset that you got to share paths with others. You are not the king of the path or the road yourself. There are others there, and I mean, like, the whole society got to come together to share it. So other solutions beyond these infrastructure and behavioral changes, we are also like, there have also been calls to license cyclists in light of recent issues on the roads. Like, I think on April 1st, the actor Tay Ping Hui showed a video of cyclists riding quite regularly on the roads. And 2 days later, we saw another video of cyclists along the road along Woodlands Road or towards Woodlands Checkpoint. They were just spreading across the road, even though like there were 3 lanes, they were not keeping to any particular lanes, and that provoked quite a lot of angst amongst people watching on Facebook also. So now there are increasingly more calls for cyclists to be licensed, such that you can kind of like, with the license plate, you can identify errant cyclists and penalize them accordingly, or hopefully put more pressure on them to behave in a more responsible manner. So that's something that the authorities haven't really responded on, and we will have to see how that goes.
Right. Well, Tingwei, Vanessa, thank you so much for weighing in on this issue. Journalists Vanessa Liu and To Ting Wei there on the latest close-up episode about the battle between cyclists and pedestrians. If you're watching us on YouTube, there's a link to the full episode in the description below.